Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 159 of the podcast, or you're joining us live here on YouTube. We're doing the live on YouTube thing, so come join in the conversation anytime you feel like it. If you missed us live, then you got to go to YouTube, search for MMA on the Rocks, subscribe, and turn on notifications for when we go live so that you know when we're going live and you can join in, and we got the chat going. It's a good time. Today is Sunday, September 29th. We are coming off of a fuckload of combat sports this weekend that are still going on right now. Man, all this content is difficult to keep up with lately. You know, we had 2 Bellator cards. We had UFC in Denmark. We had the ADCC going on in Vegas. So much to talk about, and I consumed so little of it. Before we get to all of that, let me introduce my co-host, all the way from, I don't know what the weather's like, but New Jersey. Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feeling on this Sunday evening, my friend?
Bill, I'm awesome. Jersey's been kind of warm lately, so this weekend, last weekend, pretty warm, so I've been hanging out with friends, catching up. I'm getting ready for this weather to get chilly so I can start drinking some Guinness, Bill.
Nice. I had myself a Guinness the other day. I went to there's this Irish pub in Tampa, Four Green Fields it's called, and they pour a proper Guinness there, which I'm a stickler for, Jeff. If you're gonna have a Guinness, it's got to be done right.
Yep.
It's got to be on a separate draft line, a couple of degrees warmer than the other beers. It can't have as much carbonation, and it's got to be poured in 2 phases. But they definitely do it all right. They got 6 taps in this place. I'm gonna have to take you there next time you're down in the area. You got 6 taps just for Guinness, and nothing else is running on those lines. And we got the Kimura kid, Jeff Bogman, in the group chat here saying he had some soup today, Jeff, and it made him think of you.
I'm glad. I'm glad. We actually, I was helping my dad grill a little bit because it's my niece's birthday today, so I was helping on the grill, Bill.
Well, happy birthday to the little animal.
That's an accurate description of her. But speaking of animals, Bill, let's get into some of this combat that we had so much of this weekend.
Yeah, man. I want to start off by giving a big shout out to my teammate from Gracie, Tampa, Dan Martinez, who got the call on 3 days' notice to go compete at ADCC, the World Submission Wrestling Championships. He moved up a weight class, went out there on 3 days' notice with no preparation or anything like that. And, he got the call and he said, yes, that's just the kind of guy he is. He went out there. Unfortunately, he drew Vinny Magalhaes in the first round, and he looked good. He looked damn good, but, just undersized. He was in the 99 kilogram division. He was like 25 pounds underweight. He was a silver medalist at the trials, so he kept his phone line open. And this is an important message for anyone out there who's looking to get into combat sports. You got to be ready at all times. You got to be on weight. You got to be prepared to go up in weight and answer the phone when an opportunity comes calling. So huge credit to Dan Martinez for jumping on that opportunity and getting in there, knowing that he was going to be undersized with those guys in that 99 kilogram division and going after it regardless. Hopefully they'll invite him back. It's a little bit, the way ADCC works is a little bit unusual. It's kind of like, the people who run it do whatever they want. It's an invitation only grappling contest. They only want to see the most exciting grapplers in the world. There's not really they have a trial tournament, but they don't really go by that. They just kind of go by who they want to see. It's there's a board. It used to be run by this sheik or something in Abu Dhabi who was like, I want to see this guy against this guy, give him a bunch of money and fly them here and let me watch them compete. He's, old, it's really like a medieval thing. But yeah, hopefully he gets it called back. I know it really meant a lot to him. So big shout out to Dan Martinez. He looked awesome in there. And the ADCC is finishing up as we speak. I believe. I think they're doing like the open weight. I didn't get to see a lot of it because I don't have a Flow grappling account, Jeff. I think I'd have to sell my firstborn to be able to afford it. They're looking for like $30 a month for this thing, like to watch jujitsu and grappling stuff. And I don't have I don't even have the time to put into it, even if I did have the extra money to invest in one of those grappling accounts. But I do plan on watching the ADCC. I think, if you're into grappling like EBI and stuff like that, then this is really fun stuff. From what I hear, there's been some really fun matches. I've seen some highlights. And I'll talk about it next week after I'm able to watch more of it, if you guys are interested. So let me know one way or the other. If I don't hear from you, then I'll talk about it. But let me know if you definitely want me to go into detail about it. I don't know how interested you guys are in the grappling stuff, since this is primarily an MMA and alcohol podcast. And speaking of alcohol, for all you pumpkin phobes out there, I'm back on the pumpkin beer grind here. And this one has two of my favorite things. It's got beer and puns. This is a pumpkin ale, like punk rock. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see the pumpkins playing like some instruments on there, like they're punk rockers. And this is by Dogfish Head, which is they're known for their session IPAs, that the 60-minute, the 90-minute IPAs that came out years back, and they were like one of the first craft breweries to really blow up. They were recently bought out by Sam Adams. So definitely the biggest brewery to ever come out of Delaware. And Sam Adams bought them up for like millions and millions of dollars. I can't remember off the top of my head what the number was. But this one's pretty good. It's a brown ale. It's got it's really heavy with the brown sugar up front, but not like an overwhelming sweetness. And then the aftertaste is like the cinnamon and nutmeg and whatever the fuck else they put in here. But it's pretty tasty. I'm enjoying it. High alcohol content like these pumpkin ales usually are. I know a lot of people knock them, but a couple of these bad boys will put you on your ass. Anyway, threw a lot of information at you there, Jeff. So why don't you give me any reactions you have to anything I said, or just let me know where you want to get started.
Bill, I'm really, really liking the pumpkin ale. I love puns, and I have been enjoying some pumpkin beers myself, dude. I also love Dogfish Head, so sounds like the perfect storm. Might have to look for that this weekend coming up, since this one that we're currently in is coming to a close. And yeah, dude, unfortunately, I haven't caught up on Abu Dhabi and that tournament yet. But I'm probably going to look for it during the week, see if I can find some other means of watching it, because I'm in the same boat, Bill. I don't want to pay $30 to watch jiu-jitsu when I could not do that.
Yeah.
And still watch jiu-jitsu.
It's like my main streaming services that I use are Netflix, Spotify, and ESPN Plus, and Flow Grappling costs more than all of those combined. So I don't know what they're thinking. Like if you're somehow involved in Flow Grappling and you consume this show, like what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like why would you think that people would want to pay that? And from what I understand, there's some glitches and issues with the platform. Charge less money, get it straightened out, get people on board with it. And then, once you have people roped in and you got everything ironed out, then bump it up a little bit. They'll probably make more money if they made it $10 a month and more people would subscribe. But what do I know? In any case, I know that I'm not a subscriber because it costs a ridiculous amount of money. I don't want to take out like a second mortgage on my house to be able to or sell my child. I live in Clearwater, near Clearwater, which is like high child trafficking area. So I don't know if I can even get that much for her to make up for the $30 a month. It's just like,
what are you talking about?
It's just so cheap to buy children around here, Jeff, is what I'm saying.
Oh, God.
Anyway, let's move things to Denmark. Jared Cannonier in the main event against Jack Hermansson, who, was the hometown boy, so to speak, here for this. I think they were kind of building this event around him. And, he's from Sweden, but Sweden, Denmark, like close enough. It's like New York, New Jersey. I don't know. I'm not that good with geography. But in any case, Jared Cannonier, playing the spoiler here, he weathered the storm from Jack Hermansson. I think Jack got really frustrated that he wasn't able to, apply his game plan here. He went for some takedowns, and he's got an awkward grappling style. It's very unorthodox. He was able to get Cannonier down at one point. He landed a suplex on him, took his back, but Cannonier just stayed so calm. Like I said, weathered the storm, and he was able to pick his shots. And man, that ground and pound he landed on Jack Hermansson was scary shit. And then when the fight was stopped by Mark Goddard, and Jared Cannonier just stalked the octagon and looked around at the audience, who was dead silent. It was one of the most terrifying scenes I've ever witnessed. Like, I felt like my heart stopped for a second watching this scene, watching him like look around and almost challenge the audience, like, because he got a bad reception in Brazil. When he finished Anderson Silva, understandably so. But I think that's what he was expecting here. But the Denmark crowd, much more respectful. They were just looking to see a good contest. And man, this was a career highlight performance for Jared Cannonier, who looked probably, the best we've seen him in the UFC. Give me your thoughts on this main event here, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I loved Jared Cannonier's clinch work. I thought he was doing such a great job. And he was so fucking strong, dude. Hermansson took him down, and then Cannonier would pop right back up, or he'd muscle his way to a standing position. And it was just so hard for Jack Hermansson to take control of this fight. And that's his fighting style. He likes to control the ground game. He likes to be able to put his opponents in uncomfortable positions, and Jared Cannonier was having none of it. And yeah, dude, we talked about how physically strong Cannonier is. I think we both agree that he's more suited for middleweight, and he brings a lot of power coming down from that light heavyweight division. And, just such a good performance from Jared Cannonier. I wish this had gone on a little bit longer, but you get what you get, and, great fight. I think that's a huge feather in Cannonier's cap, because Hermansson, no easy feat.
Yeah, even when he was touching Hermansson up with those jabs, he was busting his face open. Like, Hermansson knew he was getting hit early on. And I think it really sucked the life out of him quick. Cannonier, a guy who used to fight at heavyweight, and now he's come all the way down. He's had some kind of like spiritual life experience or something, and changed his diet around. He looks amazing at middleweight. And this was a fight that Jack Hermansson didn't have to take. He was ranked number 6, and Cannonier was ranked like 15th or something. So credit to Jack Hermansson for taking on all comers. He wanted to fight in Denmark. After his last win over Jacare, he said he wanted to be on this Copenhagen card, and he would take on whoever they put in front of him, and he did that. So big credit to Jack Hermansson. I have no doubt he'll be back in the gym on Monday and looking to see how he can improve. And I think the same will probably be the case for Jared Cannonier. So I personally, I'd like to see, if they don't get a title shot, maybe the winner of Darren Till and Kelvin Gastelum against Jared Cannonier. I think that would be a fun fight. Or even the loser, because I would love to see Jared Cannonier against either Till or Gastelum. So they're fighting at Madison Square Garden next month, or in November, I believe.
All right. And is that fight at 170 or 185?
That's at 185. Till is moving up. Yeah, yeah.
I like that. I like both those matchups. Him against Darren Till against Kelvin Gastelum, and then the winner of that versus Jared Cannonier. I think we could make some nice moves at the top there. I think the 185 division's been a little quiet lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's been in kind of a weird state, especially because you have guys like Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold moving up. Yoel Romero's talked about moving up. So, it's kind of been like, all your top guys are kind of making it a little bit stale, but I think it's going to have some life breathed into it next week when we see Whittaker and Adesanya, or hopefully we see Whittaker and Adesanya. There's still time for Robert Whittaker to pull out of that fight.
Yeah.
So let's hope that one comes together, but we'll get to that a little bit later. I want to move on to the co-main event here. Mark O. Madsen and Danilo Belluardo. So Madsen gets the main event slot here, and because he's Danish, so it kind of makes sense. Undefeated mixed martial artist. He was making his UFC debut here. Moves to 9-0 with his victory over Belluardo here. Olympic silver medalist is Madsen from the 2016 games, I want to say. Let me see. I have it right here. 2018. Sorry. 2018 games. So it was his third try in the Olympics. And, he was in Beijing, and then he was in London, and then he finally, was able to medal his third time around. So obviously he's a really high caliber athlete. Dominant performance in this co-main event here. My only concern is that he's 35 years old, and he's got a lot of miles on him. For 35, 3 times in the Olympics, that's a lot of wear and tear on the body. But as far as wrestling ability in this division, nobody's gonna be able to stop it. Like there's nobody that's gonna stop this guy from taking him down at 170 pounds. I don't think anybody comes close. But give me your thoughts on Madsen's performance, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, Madsen looked deadly in there. He was aggressive. He was using his wrestling in combination with strikes, and just immediately, just so easily took down Belluardo. And he's good. He's a very good Greco-Roman wrestler. And for those of you who may not know, Greco-Roman wrestling, you can't touch the other person's legs. It's all upper body. Very similar to judo in a way. So, super, super impressive from Mark Madsen. I want to see what else he's got. We only saw him fight for about a minute. And Bill, you bring up an interesting point about him being 35, having a lot of miles, like you said, 3 Olympic runs. And I think you were right the first time. I think he got that silver medal in Rio in 2016. Same year that our buddy Travis Stevens got his silver medal in judo.
Mm-hmm.
So I was impressed with Mark Madsen, but like you said, man, he's got a lot of miles on him. But at the same time, we've also seen wrestlers, fight well into their 40s in this sport. So, I'm interested to see what's next for him.
Yeah, especially that Greco-Roman style. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a great point. It's one of the styles I feel like translates the best to MMA because with freestyle wrestlers who shoot in on the legs and are better in open space, we've seen them susceptible to flying knees and punches on the way in. But for that Greco-Roman style, once they get you up against the cage, it doesn't matter that there's a cage behind you. They can put you on your back. And that clinch, it's like a different kind of strength.
Yeah.
If you've never grappled with a Greco-Roman wrestler, a high caliber Greco-Roman wrestler, then you can't really appreciate, the kind of strength. And it's deceiving, because the guy will look really strong and then he grabs you and it's like, this is a different kind of human being. So it'll be interesting to see, what Madsen could do. Probably got limited time left on the clock to do it, but, definitely could make a run in his division. There's a lot of interesting fights for him, with like a Ben Askren or Colby Covington or Kamaru Usman down the line, Tyron Woodley. We got a lot of great wrestlers in this division. See if any of them could put a stop to it. But in any case, those are all the kinds of matchups I would hope to see. And it's the kind of matchup I was hoping to see between Gilbert Burns and Gunnar Nelson. Wasn't really the case. Turned out to be more of a stand-up and clinch battle, but still a decent fight. Gilbert Burns coming away with the unanimous decision. I kind of thought that since Gunnar Nelson was pressuring a lot, that the judges might lean towards him. I thought Gilbert won the fight. But you never know with MMA judges, which way it's going to go. I wouldn't have been surprised if it went to Gunnar Nelson. It was a close fight, but I thought it was a clear win for Gilbert Burns. But, you try to think about what the judges are seeing, and it's hard to make left or right of that. But give me your thoughts on this fight, Jeff.
Yeah, Bill, I was in kind of the same boat in the sense that I couldn't tell who the judges would give it to at the end of the fight. I thought it was a really close fight. I felt like if they had given it to Gunnar Nelson, I don't think it would have been a robbery for Gilbert Burns necessarily. Still a really good fight from both of these guys. It was mostly a stand-up battle, but I liked what I saw from Gilbert Burns. He was mixing up his grappling as well. He was a tough guy to take down. Gunnar Nelson, shot him a few times and had some difficulty getting him to the ground. And I think it was the end of the second round and again early in the third round, Gilbert Burns landing this flying knee, dude. When Gunnar Nelson had his leg locked up, it was pretty awesome. And I felt like, it's things like that the judges were probably counting as well. I felt like Gilbert Burns on the feet, I felt he was a little bit better. I felt like Gunnar Nelson didn't take advantage of his reach advantage. At least that's just me. But overall, I liked what I saw on the ground from both of these guys. They were very active from the bottom. We saw some nice sweeps. We saw some nice transitions. And at the end of the first, we almost saw what I thought was going to be a leg lock from Gilbert Burns, but the bell rang. So overall, I was really excited for this fight. For me, I felt like this was definitely a contender for Fight of the Night.
Yeah, for sure. It was very back and forth. Not the straight grappling contest that you would have hoped for between these two, but that's usually what happens when you have two really high level grapplers. Gilbert Burns has been in ADCC. I think he was supposed to be in the tournament this year, but he had to pull out because he got this fight somewhat last minute. I may be speaking out of turn here, but in any case, Gilbert looks great. I think he's really one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC. I've been saying this for a while. I think the move up to 170 has been good for him. There's a lot of people who will have a lot of difficulty with his grappling, especially in this wrestling heavy division. There's going to be guys, if they can't handle him on the feet, which he is a handful on the feet now, you could tell the work with Henry Hooft has been paying off. He's got some crack on his punches right now, and he's not afraid to throw the kicks because he doesn't care about getting taken down. So I think Gilbert Burns is going to be a real threat in this division. He's not sucking himself out to make 155 anymore. And if you do get him on the ground, or if he gets you on the ground, you're in a lot of trouble because he's world class there. All right, moving on to the big boys, Ion Cutelaba and Khalil Rountree. This was an exciting fight for as long as it lasted. Cutelaba, I don't really agree with all the antics before the fight, getting in Rountree's face and screaming and all this and marching across the cage and giving like death threat hand signals and stuff like that. But you can't argue with the results here. His plan was to wrestle, and he was just throwing Rountree's leg over his head and tripping the other leg and just dropping him to the ground over and over again. He showed some of that high level judo and sambo that we haven't really seen from him before in the UFC, because he loves to stand and bang with everybody. But he knows that Rountree's been working on his Muay Thai over at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand for a while now, I think over a year. So he didn't want to mess with that. And, the way the Thais fight, they're all slow starters. They're about getting a rhythm and usually like taking that first round off. So Cutelaba did the right thing by getting in his face and pressuring him, keep him against the cage. So he couldn't find that Muay Thai rhythm, and then putting him on his back where Thai fighters definitely aren't comfortable. But I thought this was an impressive performance from Cutelaba. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, Cutelaba just went out there, was in Khalil Rountree's face, man. Rountree just never got a chance to get going because of the pressure that Ion Cutelaba was putting on him, and the wrestling, the grappling, all that stuff was great, and you could tell that Khalil Rountree was starting to break down. We've talked about how hard it is to grapple, how hard it is to have somebody else on top of you. All that stuff wears you out. And I thought Ion Cutelaba went in there with the right game plan. Like you said, he just, completely stuffed all of Khalil Rountree's offense and, just neutralized it. So good win for him. We talked about Rountree. I felt like he was starting to get going a little bit in this light heavyweight division. He had a couple wins under his belt already. His striking, like we said, looked much improved. So a really good win for Cutelaba. And I think, I just think it was a little too much for Rountree in this one.
Yeah, man. And speaking of neutralizing offense, that's exactly what Ovince St. Preux did against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Oleksiejczuk came out guns blazing. He was in Ovince's face, swinging for the fences the entire first round. He rocked him a couple of times. He was going to the body. He was mixing things up. He looked fantastic. And then, I guess Ovince kind of shook the cobwebs off, came out in that second round. He still got pieced up a little bit at the beginning of that second round. And then, he started firing back, started countering. And then once he got to the ground, this was just, it was like a white belt and a black belt here. Ovince St. Preux, of course, loves going for that shoulder choke. The Von Flue choke, the Von Preux choke, the St. Preux choke, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's a shoulder pressure choke that usually you're able to land this choke when somebody holds on to a guillotine too long from the bottom. But the way Ovince St. Preux set this up this time was he held Oleksiejczuk's arm around his own neck and then popped it into place and then hopped over his half guard and was able to put that pressure. And you could see it was just a matter of time. Like there's no moving from that position. Like if you've ever grappled with somebody who's good in this position, like once they get it, you're fucked. It's just, that's it. That's checkmate. And he gave up that position. Ovince, made sure he couldn't get out of it. And then, he would have put him to sleep if he didn't tap. So great performance by St. Preux. He's kind of running into a bad habit of taking a lot of punishment in his fights, coming away with the wins, but, sometimes not. And even if he is, he's getting beat up a little bit in there, not exactly what you want to be known for, but, at the same time, you can't argue with the results. But give me your thoughts on this one, Jeff.
Yeah, dude. Like you said, Ovince St. Preux was getting busted up in there, man. He was getting tenderized. It was looking bad, especially like you said, those body shots. You could tell he was breathing heavy after those, and they were doing some damage. And Bill, I'm glad he got the Von Flue choke and everything, but I gotta address this. The way he went for the takedown, that was like the worst takedown I've ever seen, Bill. Oh God, like there was no level change. He kind of just like hugged Oleksiejczuk's butt and started driving forward. I mean, we need to OSP. Listen, you're doing a good job, but we got to work on this wrestling, man.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the Chael Sonnen style blast double. Head in the chest and just like barrel them over. If it doesn't work, then you hit the level change from there. But if you have enough momentum with that battery, sometimes they just fall right over. And Oleksiejczuk, very what he seems to be undersized for this division,
Yeah,
and that didn't seem to matter one bit in that first round, where he was landing whatever he wanted on Ovince St. Preux. But when it comes to the grappling, that's when a size advantage really comes into play. All right, I'm gonna breeze over a couple of things here. Nicolas Dalby looked good in his win over Cowboy Oliveira. I thought this was a good fight, very back and forth. There was a ridiculous stand up at one point in the fight by the referee. I can't tell you guys enough like how against stand-ups I am. The referee should be in there to keep the fighter safe, and that's it. Stay the fuck out of the fight. Just stand there with your rubber gloves, and if somebody gets blood in their eyes or takes a low blow, then you step in there. Otherwise, I shouldn't even know you're in the cage. But the rules are the rules, and they're allowed to do that. So I guess it's at his discretion, but he fucked up. Let's see, John Phillips with a 17-second KO over Alen Amedovski. This was a crazy fight. These guys just stood in the pocket, swinging wild on each other, just throwing straight clubs back and forth. 17 seconds, and Phillips coming away with that big knockout win. Let's see, Ismail Nordiev. This put on a grappling clinic against CR Bahadurzada. Bahadurzada is one of these guys who's like a real slugger, like a real hard hitter in this division, but off his back, man, he just looked like he's never really done any grappling. He was just hanging on for dear life, hoping for the referee to step in. And it was even Mark Goddard. If you're going to have a chance that it gets stood up, your best chance is having Mark Goddard as a referee. But even Mark Goddard was like, nah, man, you got to take this whooping today. And he just let him suffer down there. And then a bit of controversy, Giga Chikadze and Brandon Davis. This fight was announced as a draw, and they later had to go back and say that they made a mistake, and Chikadze actually won a split decision. I don't think it should have even been a split decision. I think Chikadze clearly won this fight over Brandon Davis, who had his moments in the fight where he looked good and he was landing some stuff, but Chikadze easily won 2 of the 3 rounds. I don't think there's even debate about that. And then I'll stop there. Any reaction to anything I've said so far, Jeff?
Yeah, dude. That Nicolas Dalby versus Alex Oliveira fight, that was for me fight of the night. I thought it was an awesome fight from both of these guys. But Bill, yeah, I was so pissed when they stood up Cowboy Oliveira. He's a dude who's clearly 2 rounds down. He's clearly looking for a finish here because, yeah, they're on the ground, but Oliveira was clearly working, throwing punches, throwing elbows, trying to look for a finish here because he needs it to win. And the fucking ref stands him up, man. I was just so upset with this. But good performance from Dalby. He was really dominant, and good performance from Oliveira. We usually see him fade a little bit as the fight goes on. He tries to look for early finishes. And we saw some good grappling from him as well. So good fight from both of these guys. But unfortunately, we just wasn't happy with the refereeing in this one.
Yeah, man. It was a bummer. I hate to see stuff like that. You never know how it would have turned out. I mean, you have a pretty good idea based on how the rest of the fight went. But in any case, good for Dalby. He looked good. Lena Landsberg, unanimous decision over Macy Chiasson. Mark DeCase and Lando Venata. DeCase getting the unanimous decision. This was on the early prelims. I didn't even see this fight. I forgot it was even happening. I imagine there was some fun stuff going on in this fight because they're both really creative strikers, but I didn't see anything about it. It kind of got lost in the mix of all the MMA going on. It was not only was it on the early prelims, but this fight was on early in the day. So sucks for these 2 guys who are both really exciting fighters. I don't know. Did you catch this one, Jeff? Or
yeah, I did actually, and this was an exciting fight, man. Mark DeCase was mixing it up really well. He was shooting for takedowns. He was using his grappling, and on the feet, he was doing really well. I felt like Lando Venata, put up a good fight as well, but he just couldn't answer. He didn't have an answer for anything that DeCasey was throwing at him. It was pretty high, pretty fast pace after the first round. So a very exciting fight. And Mark DeCasey, we talked about probably a few months back, his grappling just wasn't there. And I feel like that's something he's been working on. It shows in the cage. He's a very exciting striker, but seeing him go for takedowns yesterday, man, I got to jump on this train here, Bill. I think that Mark DeCasey's doing the right things. I think he's going to make a splash in this division sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's got some kinks to work out in the grappling department, but he's definitely got world-class striking. So we'll see how things go for him there. And then Jack Shore with the late rear naked choke victory over Nolan Hernandez. You got anything else on Denmark here, kid? We got a lot of other stuff to talk about here.
Nah, we got to get moving, Bill.
All right. Bellator. I didn't watch it. I don't think you watched it. This is a great card on paper. I just, I couldn't find the motivation, Jeff. But Gegard Mousasi getting a split decision victory over Lyoto Machida, so he got that. Got some revenge there. Patricky Pitbull defends his title over Juan Archuleta. I was actually really looking forward to that fight. I just couldn't. It was on DAZN, and I don't know where to find it. I can't be bothered. AJ McKee 8-second knockout over Georgi Karakian, and then Darian Caldwell with a win over Henry Corrales. Caldwell and McKee are two guys that I've had my eye on for a long time. Daniel Weichel with a unanimous decision over Saul Rogers, who was on season 22 of The Ultimate Fighter. He was actually he's got a win over Billy Quarantillo, friend of the show, on that season. I don't know. There were some other fights, I guess. Oh, Antonio McKee. This is actually kind of interesting. Antonio McKee, AJ McKee's father, was also on this card and also got a TKO victory.
No, that's awesome.
The first father and son duo to ever fight on the same card, and they both get knockout wins. So good day for that family.
Yeah.
I don't think you caught any of this Bellator card, did you, Jeff?
No, but now that you bring up the results, I kind of wish I had watched it. But Bellator has been dropping the ball too often, man. They gotta win me back.
Yeah,
I need to be wined and dined, Bill. So
yeah, it's like, I don't know, when Bellator cards are on, it's almost like it's like that crazy girl who texts you too much, but she's kind of fun to hang out with, but you just don't want to put the effort. It's like, that's Bellator lately. Yeah, and then they had a card on Friday night too, James Gallagher, the bargain brand Conor McGregor was on. And
it's a generic brand.
Yeah, generic brand. He's like the America's Choice.
Oh man.
The RC Cola version of Conor McGregor. Yeah. All right. So Bellator, get with the program. UFC's been putting out these cards that are New York strip steaks, and Bellator's serving hot dogs over here. So
yeah, they're not even grilled. They've been boiled in water and just kept there.
Yeah. For a long time. There was one guy on the Bellator card who's like AJ McKee's dad. He's 50. He's been sitting in that hot dog water a long time. All right.
All right, but we're getting off the rails here. We gotta.
Yeah. Before we know it, they're gonna bring Herschel Walker back. He started MMA at 52.
Oh man.
Anyway, UFC. Next week, they're going to be in Melbourne, Australia. Possibly Robert Whittaker will be fighting against Israel Adesanya. I don't want to get too excited for this one, Jeff, because, Robert Whittaker's burned me a couple times before where I've been so excited to see him fight. And, it just falls through. You almost forget how good Robert Whittaker is. I mean, this guy is a world-class fucking fighter, and he's good everywhere. Israel Adesanya, no doubt about it, has some of the most creative and explosive striking, really good at reading people. But we've seen him struggle a little bit with grappling in the past. And he hasn't been in there with really high-level grapplers. I mean, he was in there with Gastelum, but Gastelum tried to stand with him the whole time pretty much. And that was a great fight. Gastelum gave him a hard time. And I think Whittaker is going to be a little bit quicker on the feet than Gastelum was, and he's going to pressure him, push him up against the cage, make him worry about the takedown. He's going to come in with a smart game plan. It kind of seems like the rising star of Adesanya can't be stopped. Like he's got too much momentum. But I also really don't see a way that he beats Robert Whittaker. If a prime Robert Whittaker shows up and brings all his tools and brings a good game plan, which he's going to do, I don't see a way. I don't see a way for him to lose really, unless he gets caught with something silly. But we've seen him take a fucking cinder block to the head in those fights with Yoel Romero, and he keeps coming. So I don't know. This is an interesting one. And I don't want to get too excited about it, but I'm really kind of excited about it, especially now that I'm talking about it now. Jeff, give me your thoughts on this main event from Melbourne, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited. I'm a fan of Robert Whittaker. It's a shame he's been a little injury prone. He's had some bad luck, but the dude can fight. That's why he's a champ. That and because GSP, gave up his belt. Robert Whittaker, like you said, he's been in wars with Yoel Romero. Beat him both times. The second one was debatable, but like
Romero missed weight, so fuck him.
Yeah, that's fair. He didn't deserve to be champ anyway. I just don't think Israel Adesanya brings the power that a guy like Jacare or Yoel Romero brings when it comes to stand-up. Mm-hmm. Israel Adesanya is very methodical. He tries to pick you apart. He tries to, wear you down. It's gonna be a marathon. It's not gonna be a sprint with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, can Adesanya mix it up really well on the feet? Yes. I think that Robert Whittaker is a little bit more well-rounded. We've seen him beat multiple styles of fighters. We've seen him beat a wrestler in Yoel Romero. We've seen him beat a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Jacare Souza. We've seen him beat other strikers too. So I just think Robert Whittaker has more tools in his locker than Israel Adesanya. I feel like Robert Whittaker has more experience against other high-level fighters, whereas Israel Adesanya probably doesn't. Yes, he beat Anderson Silva, but one, they barely fucking threw a punch at each other. Yeah. I was not crazy about that fight. I don't care what anybody says. And number two, Anderson Silva needed to be on steroids to even be in there because he's like 1,000. And I love Anderson Silva. I really do. But I don't think he should have been in that fight with Israel Adesanya. I think that Anderson Silva has earned himself a happy retirement. Again, not to knock him. I just think that, he needs to understand what he's supposed to be doing at this age. I don't see a scenario where Israel Adesanya beats Robert Whittaker, unless there's a freak injury in the middle. But you can't even count on that because Israel Adesanya beat Yoel Romero with like a torn ACL or something.
You mean Robert Whittaker beat?
Yeah. Robert Whittaker beat Yoel Romero on like one leg. So
yeah, I mean, in fairness, I didn't think that Adesanya would beat Gastelum either, but he did. So that's the beauty of the sport, is anything can happen. And hopefully we get to see these two in there. If not, we got a main event between two guys who I can tell you, or I can personally guarantee, these two guys will make it to the cage, and that's Reginald Iaquinta and Dan Hooker. These two guys will be there on fight night, whether it's the co-main event, the main event. These guys are going to be in there fucking slugging it out. I am so excited for this fight. I got the opportunity to meet Al a couple of weeks ago at Law MMA in Long Island. Shout out again to my buddies on MMA and Beyond for having me on that show. I got to see Al have a vicious sparring session in the gym, and he looked phenomenal. He looks ready. He went out to Australia, 2 weeks ahead of time to acclimate. And, Dan Hooker is just one of these guys who is huge for this lightweight division. But Iaquinta's been in there with big guys before, and he's looked good. So you've got the punching power of Dan Hooker against the precision and the pressure of Al Iaquinta. And I don't think you could have more of a perfect storm for a fantastic co-main event here. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited for this one. I think someone gets finished in this fight, Bill. Like you said, Dan Hooker brings a lot of power, but Al Iaquinta, he's precise. He pushes forward. He doesn't give you any space to get your offense off. So, it's going to be a really, really good fight. I'm curious to see how Al Iaquinta goes about, getting inside Dan Hooker's guard, because not only is he tall, like you said, for his division, but he's got a lot of reach too. So this is a really, really exciting style matchup here.
Yeah, and like you said, there's no quit in either one of these guys. I think you learn the most about both of them from their most recent losses. Iaquinta, well, I'll go back to so his most recent loss to Cowboy, I still thought he looked great. That was a fucking amazing fight, and there was no quitting him there. And then when he was in there against Khabib on short notice, I think even Khabib got frustrated, and he wasn't able to get him down later in the fight. And Al was in his face the whole time. And, Khabib couldn't even take a breath. And with Dan Hooker, that beating he took against Edson Barbosa is one of the most brutal beatings I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. And he kept standing there in front of Barbosa until the ref finally had to stop it. So these are two guys that you have to put their lights off to get them out of there. They're not throwing in the towel. They're not raising a white flag. Neither one of these guys is going to say uncle in there. If it comes to submissions, they'll both go to sleep before they tap. I can guarantee you all of these things. So excited for that fight. Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Spivak, couple of heavyweights throwing down there. They both have, about 10 fights under their belt. Luke Jumo and Diego Lima is a fun fight. Jake Matthews and Rostem Akman. Then I'll jump down a little bit. Megan Anderson, down on the prelims, I believe. Hometown gal here. Kind of unfortunate story for her so far in the UFC. She'll be getting in there against Zara Farron dos Santos. And I think there was one more that jumped out to me. Okay, so there's these guys. There's a lot of inexperienced fighters on this card, like Brad Rydell, 2-0, is fighting Jamie Malarkey, who's 8-2. And then there's another one, Jorgen De Castro, 5-0, against Justin Taffa, 3-0. My only guess here, without looking these fighters up, is that they're local fighters that they're using to kind of build the market over there in Australia. But it is kind of odd seeing, like, if you, I'm not a big numbers guy, but if you went through take away the main and the co-main event fighters, if you went up and down this fight and took the total amount of fight experience from all of the fighters on it, we might have some of the lowest numbers you've ever seen on a UFC card since like way back in the day. Because if you look up and down here at the records, 8-2, 9-1, 6-1, 3-0, 5-0. Not a whole lot of experience, which could mean a lot of fun, or it could mean, a lot of shit fights. But I guess there's only one way to find out. Tune in next Saturday night. I know I will be. I know you will be, Jeff. So October 5th in Melbourne, Australia, UFC 243. I'm excited for this card. This is going to be a fun one. Any other thoughts on this one, Jeff?
Yeah, dude, I'm excited for this one too. I'm a big fan of Tai Tuivasa as well. You know, he brings in he's a lot of charisma to the cage as well as a lot of power. So that's going to be a really good fight. Probably a short one too against Sergey Spivak. Luke Jimmo versus Diego Lima looks really interesting too. Bill, overall, I think this card's going to deliver.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for the Australians to have spoilers here. Whittaker and Adesanya, that's kind of a wash because New Zealand, Australia.
Yeah, they're almost the same country.
Yeah, they're both, they're both like hometown boys there. Ally Quinta can definitely upset the hometown boy Dan Hooker. Sergey Spivak can definitely upset the hometown boy Tai Tuivasa, and then Diego Lima is no walk in the park for anybody. So, and the hometown fighter there is Luke Jimmo. In the past couple of cards, we've seen pretty consistently that when they have these cards in another country and they stack the card with fighters from that country, they don't do as well. The exception sometimes is Brazilian fighters do well in Brazil. But I've had this theory for a long time that having fighting in your hometown or your home country isn't necessarily an advantage. I think the traveling and being away from your family and friends is more of an advantage than being around them in a sport like this. If it's like baseball or like soccer or something, like maybe there's a home team advantage or something like that. I don't think it really translates to MMA. And I've felt this way for a long time. And I've had this conversation with many fighters and many analysts and things like that. And I kind of stand by it. We see a lot of New York fighters who don't want to fight in New York. Chris Weidman's going to be fighting in Boston in a couple of weeks. In any case, any other thoughts on UFC 243 here, Jeff?
No, I guess we got to leave it for next week after all these fights.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to be in the morning on my way to Disney World. My parents are in town. They want to take the baby to Disney. So we're going to be going out there for a couple of days. I'm going to stay at one of the Disney hotels tomorrow night, and we're going to go to Animal Kingdom. The baby loves animals, so it makes sense to bring her to Animal Kingdom. So I'll have some report on that stuff for you guys next week as well. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you guys know I am an expert at sneaking booze into Disney. So I'll be happy to share some tips of the trade there. And yeah, it should be a good time. We're going to go to one of my favorite restaurants over in Disney Spring. It's called Raglan Road, Irish spot. They pour a good Guinness there. They got Smithwick's on draft, which is not something you find everywhere. They make something called a blacksmith, which is half Guinness, half Smithwick's. Very, very delicious beer. So my report on a couple of those. You guys can follow along, as always, on the Instagram story and stuff like that. I try and post as much as possible on there at MMA on the Rocks. And you guys can get a hold of me anywhere else on social media as well, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You can send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. Visit the website. Been trying to keep that updated. If you guys want to check out the website now, I just recently added a page on the website that has highlights from some of my favorite interviews over the last 3+ years. I'll be slowly adding to that as well. It takes a lot of time to clip all these interviews up and put them into little digestible pieces, because I know people can't always go back and listen to entire episodes and go and look them up and all that stuff, because there's so much content out there. So try to make things easy on you guys. If there's anything else I could do, let me know. Reach out on social media. I love hearing suggestions. Love hearing what you guys are thinking and drinking out there. If you want to get a hold of Jeff the Animal Wilson, it's at Animal_Wilson on Twitter and Instagram. Don't forget, the Animal's on Instagram now. He's been a little bit more active on there too. So get with it. Jeff, you got anything else you want to get off your chest this week?
No, that's all I got for you, Bill.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to breaking down the bad motherfucker belt in a couple of weeks. And we got some exciting things on the horizon, man. The UFC is going full throttle through the end of the year. A lot of exciting things coming up, and we're excited to talk about them. If you guys want us to cover the ADCC, let us know, and we'll talk about that next week after I get a chance to sit down and watch these, like some night this week after the baby's asleep early, like that ever happens. In any case, that's all we got for this week. Until next time, cheers, everybody. Goodbye.